Well, hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here because I have so much to share with you. And I am here I'm all by myself.
Everyone.
I'm all by myself doing this. So I'm going to be telling you about what the stars have in store for us astrologically. So let me go ahead. Hold on 1 minute. I've got to get where I can see myself. So hold on 1 second. And I hope everyone got the message that that what I'm doing is I'm doing this on Zoom instead of doing a live stream on YouTube, because I wanted to be able to share my screen and show everyone what I have going here in the astrology of it all. So this is going to be a really deep class with timing, because I have nothing prepared. All I'm going to be doing is talking about the charts, what's going on in the world, and most of all, what we can do and what we can expect. That's the most important thing. So let me, first of all, get this to where, oh, I know what to do. And I want to be able to see everyone. Okay. All right, there we go. Now I can see all of the charts and everyone. So let me begin by talking about, I felt very compelled to bring up this whole subject about what's happening in the world, because right now, the Ukraine and Russia are in war, and everyone's asking me, well, what's going to happen? What's going to come of this? But most of all, why is this happening? You know, I always want to look at things from a spiritual perspective, because my belief is that is the real reason why we're here. And really, when things get tough, that's when we have the greatest opportunity for growth on all levels, whether it be in our personal lives, in the world, and most of all in our spiritual lives. So we have to take this seriously, because I believe that's the whole purpose why we're here. So with that said, before we begin, I want you guys to know, because of what's happening in the world and the transits that are about to occur that are going to bring a great change, let me just put it that way, a big change, I think we're going to be able to see why everything has happened the way it has, especially the whole virus, especially world leaders. Everyone wants to be free, and everyone's fighting for their freedom around the world. No one likes to be controlled and told what to do, you know? So we're going to all look at the charts to make sense of what the probability and possibilities are. What do I think is going to be happening based on astrology? Now, let me remind everyone, I'm a full believer in free will. So that's why we want to see this. I'm not showing you all this to scare you. I'm showing you all this to prepare you. And when you're prepared, you can definitely avert many things. And that's the whole reason why I'm here to say all of this. And another reason why I'm here to say all this is because when you know when things are going to get better, that's the light at the end of the tunnel. And there are going to be some amazing transformational changes this year. And I want to point everyone's attention towards those. This is a monumental year of change. So let me give you, there's really 3 major points of change this year. And March and April is giant with the changes to come. That's one. The second time frame for change, well, really, I'm going to say March, then April, because between, I think it started November, December, we started what's called a Kalasarpa yoga. You've heard me say this before. What in the world does Kalasarpa yoga mean? Well, Kala means time and Sarpa means snake or serpent. And so it means the time serpent yoga. And what it really equates to, and I'm going to show you the charts, and even if you don't know any astrology, you're going to see what I'm pointing out. It's when all the planets are on one side of the lunar axes, which is Rahu and Ketu. They are very important tools for prediction. They actually predict when we're going to have eclipses. And eclipses, as I've said so many times, is where the darkness, out of the darkness, because remember, it's the light of the sun and the moon that are extinguished, but out of the darkness comes the truth, something we didn't know about. And of course, there's going to be a solar eclipse towards the end of April. And then we will have another one somewhere around October. So eclipses are always opposite. But right now, with the Kala Sarpa Yoga, it means that we're trapped. And it means a time of destiny, a time of very unusual entrapments and fate and karma that the planet's going through. Now, we're going to be in this Kala Sarpa Yoga till around the end of April. So right now, we're in the middle of it. So that's why everything feels so intense. The next thing I want to talk about is the planetary war that Mars and Venus have been involved in. Been talking about that forever because that's exactly what they equate to. But it's so unusual. See, it's when two planets come together at the same exact degree. The sun and the moon are not included in this. So it's the 5 planets whenever they are the same degree. And both those planets fight against each other. Mars is war, Venus is peace. So guess what we've been dealing with? But Mars is so powerful coming up here now that Mars is in the sign of Capricorn. It's exalted and it has more strength. So Mars is contention and it's fighting, but we have this great planetary war of these two planets. And what that means is they're continually fighting. But the most amazing thing I feel about it is the fact that Venus and Mars don't always travel the same rate of speed. I mean, this is very, very rare, but it's because of the alignment of where Venus, when it stopped from being retrograde and it moved forward, when a planet goes retrograde or direct, it's speed, the motion of speed is slowed down considerably. As a matter of fact, when it does shift, it practically stands completely still. Not exactly, but almost. But then because Venus of the retrograde process has been moving so slow, it's moving the same rate of speed of Mars. So month after month, they're in planetary war. This planetary war will be broken in April, but in March, it's very contentious. They are on top of each other, fighting. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the Mars and Saturn conjunction. Now, you may think, you know, Mars travels through the zodiac every 2 years. It goes through all 12 signs. So every 2 years, Mars and Saturn will conjunct, but not in the sign of Capricorn. They are incredibly strong in this sign. So this is another contentious aspect that we have to discuss today. So, and right after that, we have the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. So we're going to be talking basically about those things, but the last 2 things that I need to tell you is next August through October is very intense. I think it could be even more intense than now because we're going to have Mars align in Aries with Uranus and Rahu. And when that happens, there's going to be radical shifts. Now, I've been telling everyone this is a year of earthquakes because Uranus rules earthquakes. Coming together with Mars and Rahu, the world is going to shake. I do have an idea of where I think it's going to occur. I will give you some clues to that. But right now, I want to start looking at the charts. And first, I'm going to pull up the Mars and Saturn conjunction. And I want you to get a feel of where we're looking in these charts. Now, let me remind you, you don't have to know astrology to understand where I'm coming from with this. So and I see everyone, don't worry, I'm going to take your questions, so keep them rolling. I just want to focus on where I'm going right now. So let me see. Right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. And that's not what I want you to see. This is what I want you to see right now. So I hope everyone can share the screen. Right now, I can't see your questions, but don't worry, I will look and I will answer questions for all of you, I know. But let me talk about where I'm going with this first before I start looking at your questions. So this is the day right here in the middle, and I know a lot of you probably aren't familiar with the South Indian style chart, but this is what I use. So this is what I'm most comfortable with. Let me just explain it first of all. These are the houses. These squares, of course, are the houses. For the South Indian style chart, the signs are fixed. In other words, no matter what chart or whose chart you're looking at, this corner is always Gemini. These are the glyphs for the signs: Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra. So the signs are fixed, but what changes are the houses depending on the rising sign. But you know what? In this chart, we're not going to worry about the rising sign because I just want to know where the planets are in the heavens. This is not a birth chart. This is just the day and the time that Mars and Saturn comes together exactly right here. It is April 4th of 2022. So in other words, in the South Indian style chart, the signs are the same. And I'll show you when we get to an individual's chart. But what changes are the houses according to the rising sign. So look over here. Here is what I want to point out. This is the most important aspect that's coming up, and it happens April 4th. It is when Mars and Saturn, here's Mars, here's Saturn. They come together exactly at 28 degrees of Capricorn. Now, why is this important? Well, the last time they came together in Capricorn was around 1991. And that was when Los Angeles was almost burned. You know, there was great burning of Los Angeles and fighting. And it was the Rodney King, right after the Rodney King incident happened. So there's going to be violence, in other words. And the time before that, I mentioned this in my Mars-Saturn video, the time before that was when the Cuban Missile Crisis was happening around 1961-62. And the time before that, another time, was when Adolf Hitler was announced as the Führer of Germany. So you get my drift. These two planets coming together in this sign, which yes, Mars and Saturn come together every 2 years, but not every 2 years in that sign. And that's the sign that makes them the most powerful. Why? Mars is exalted in Capricorn, and its exact degree of exaltation just happens to be 28 degrees of Capricorn. Now, Saturn is in its own sign. So Saturn's extraordinarily strong as well. So this combination is so powerful, but here's what makes it, well, I want to say deadly, but that's a too extreme word to use, I think, but yeah, deadly. Yes, because Rahu is here in Aries at 28 degrees and K2 is in Libra, 28 degrees. Okay, so what I want you to know about this is that these two planets sit at the exact midpoint of Mars and Saturn. Okay, So hold on a second, guys. I want to make sure that that everyone can see what I'm doing. Okay, good. Yes. So this is a T-square. So you just draw a line and then to there. This is potent. So if you have any planets, I know everybody's going to go looking at their charts. It's not like it's something awful is going to happen to you, but it's going to be very stressful. That's what I will say, because those two planets, Mars and Saturn, always represent delays and setbacks. So what have they traditionally represented before? Many times problems with the economy. And of course, the stock market is affected, the economy is affected, governments are affected. Saturn rules governments. This is giant. Okay, so now that you know the degrees that we're looking for, just remember it's going to be right over here, 28 degrees, and right up here, 28 degrees. And anything that may be 28 degrees in Cancer. Those are where we have the cardinal cross. Cardinal signs are the most expressive and action-oriented. Libra, Aries, Capricorn, and Cancer. So even if you're not familiar with astrology, you've got to know that this is giant. How often does this predicament happen? It's extremely rare. So it predicts something huge is about to happen. Now, I'm not saying it has to happen on this day. It can happen a week before, a week after, but around this time, when these planets are approaching those degrees within a 3-degree range, that's when the events happen. So many people say, well, nothing happened on April 4th. No, it's got to be around there. That's where these energies are building, and something can happen and explode around that time. So let me go ahead here and let me show you the charts that I want to plug this configuration into. And of course, what's on everyone's mind, here is the chart I have for Vladimir Putin. Now, we don't necessarily know if his time of birth is correct. I went and researched it. 9:30 is what everyone gives, but they say it's dirty data. Dirty data is something that Lois Rodden, in all of her research, she's an astrologer. She's since been gone. I knew Lois. She was a lovely person, but she did so much for the world of astrology to find birth data and to be able to do our research. So in other words, I'm not 100% that this is this time of birth, but we can always look at charts from the moon, because for this day, the moon was definitely in Taurus. So his moon's in Taurus. So many times when we don't know a birth time, we can make the moon the ascendant. Okay, but as I said before, the setup with the South Indian style chart is this. The signs are fixed. This corner is always Gemini, but the houses change according to where the ascendant is. And the ascendant is the sign that's rising at the time of birth on the eastern horizon. So this sets up the first house, the ascendant. Okay, so wherever the ascendant is the first house. So right here, his ascendant sits in Libra. And the ascendant is the rising sign. And in Vedic astrology, we call it the Lagna, the beginning of the chart, really. And one more thing about the South Indian style chart, everything in this chart moves clockwise, not counterclockwise like Western astrology or the North Indian style chart. Okay, so now that we have this, I want you to plug in that Mars Saturn around 28 degrees of Capricorn, and it sits right on Putin's Rahu. Regardless of what house it's in, it's going to be on his Rahu. So around that time, something big is coming for Putin. And so nodal axis sits right here. 26, 47, it's almost 27 degrees of Capricorn, and K2's almost at 27 degrees of Cancer. This is huge, that Mars Saturn's going to hit his Rahu. Now, let's say that this chart is correct, and Rahu does sit in his fourth house. What is the fourth house? Home, family. I always call it in a leader's chart, a president's chart, the homeland. So Russia with Mars and Saturn there could be attacked. That's what I will say. They've been doing all the attacking, but looks like the table's going to turn somewhat if this is his rising sign, Libra. But let me say this, if we look at the moon as the ascendant and you count around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, then it's happening in the ninth house. The ninth house is the house that can deal with travels. It can deal with government, leadership, spirituality. Well, we're going to leave that one out of the mix for him. But looking at this, it's going to Mars, Saturn. These are the nodal axes. These are destiny. These are destiny determinants. And another thing is, look where his Jupiter sits. It's interesting, his Jupiter sits at the midpoint of his Rahu in Ketu, right there, all cardinal signs. So remember where Rahu is going, because on March 16th, Rahu and Ketu change signs. It's a huge, big deal for all of us. So when they change, you'll see a feeling in the world will shift as soon as they change. And yes, I use the true node, not the mean node. For those of you that are wondering, I know that doesn't mean much to most of you, but as they change signs, we have Rahu's going to be approaching his Jupiter, because when the way that the nodes travel is backwards in the zodiac. So if you'll look where it says new event over here, this is actually where the planets are as we speak today. So they are at 0 degrees, Taurus and Scorpio. They sit right here at 0 degrees. So if they travel backwards, when they enter into a sign, they enter into a sign at 29 degrees. That there's 30 degrees to a sign. So when they enter in, that's the last degree of the sign. They travel backwards. So it's completed their process through Taurus, Scorpio, and it's going into Aries. So in other words, it's going to come up and hit its Jupiter very soon. Let me show you something very interesting. It's actually a photo of our backyard. So, but let me put this in. I'm pulling up all of Putin's transits, and we're going to see when they're exact. Remember, I always tell people sometimes the events happen around that time, not exactly sometimes on the date, but sometimes it is accurate and it happens on the date. So what I'm pulling up here is when the Saturn Mars will hit this. This is how I do all my readings. I bring up all the transits. But let me point out something else very interesting about Putin's chart. And you're going to see this with your life, everyone's life. In Vedic astrology, we use the dashas. I'm not going to go into what that all means. But down here is his current dasha. And the way the dashas work, they are long periods of time. And when you change from one grand cycle, one Mahadasha to the next, your whole life will change dramatically. It's so interesting because most people that make appointments with me for a chart reading, they're always changing dashas because they feel their whole life has changed and they need direction and guidance to figure out what's going on. Their whole life changes. So guess what? Putin's whole life is about to change, because if you look down here, he is in the very last phase of his Saturn dasha. So being in the last phase of the Saturn dasha, Saturn's dasha is 19 years, and it is going to completely come to an end next November. November 24th of 2022. Now, this is, of course, if his birth time is accurate. But even if his birth time's off by 30 minutes or whatever, these dashas will be pretty close to happening at this time. But look at how He is at the very, very tail end, because what happens November 24th, 2022, he starts his 17-year Mercury cycle. So his Saturn cycle is coming to an end. And don't think on the day that you end a dasha that the sky falls, because you're starting to feel that change before it even happens. It's just like I always tell my students, it's like the rising or setting sun. Before the sun hits the horizon, you see the light. So he's feeling this radical change now. And it's about to happen. Something big, his whole life is radically changing. Now, looking at Putin's chart, you know, his Saturn sits here in the 12th house. You know, when you look at his chart, let's just look at his chart for a second. He has a Libra rising. Venus sits in the first house. So he can be very charming. I know it doesn't look that way right now at all, but he knows how to charm, and he knows how to get people to pay attention to him. With this Venus being in the first house, he's very consumed with looks, grace, charm, and pretty much with his Swati ascendant, these are the abbreviations for the nakshatras, they can really manipulate people when they want. So this is what I see from this rising, plus Venus being there. But if you look at all these planets in his 12th house, what is the 12th house? Well, most people think of the 12th house as being losses and endings, and you know, they do not give the 12th house any good connotations, but I do. It's not just a loss. It's the house of bringing things to completion, number one, but number two, it deals with foreign lands and countries. And most world leaders have planets in the 12th house because this is what they do. They work with foreign lands and countries. But if you'll look at his 12th house, Saturn Sun, that's a tough one. You know, there's issues with the past, the father, and most importantly, friends. Why do I say that? The Sun rules the 11th house, goes to the 12th house of hidden agendas. He can't trust his friends. And I think that is very pertinent right now. Okay. Then I'm looking at Saturn being next to the Sun. Sun conjunctions are always trying to make themselves better. They always feel like they haven't done enough. They haven't been as successful as they need to be. So they're always on a quest to make things better. But Saturn many times has been referred to as being in control. Okay. And then we look at where Neptune is. Well, Neptune, I know some of the Vedic astrologers do not use the outer planets. I use them, but not as house rulers. They work. And they're a huge determinant for what's happening in the world, trust me. So looking at Neptune, it is right on top of his Mercury. As Mercury sits at 29 degrees of Virgo. That's a real powerful placement, let me tell you. It is so powerful because, well, first of all, Neptune can cloud his judgments. It can make him delusional, but at the same time, it can make him very insightful in seeing things like intuition. But that 29 degrees of Mercury sits right on the fixed star Spica, which is actually referred to as one of the best stars of all. It deals with literary genius, it deals with writing, it deals with intelligence, and it deals with things that happen completely out of the blue that turn your life around. So the fact that he became the president, the leader of Russia, I think has a lot to do with this Mercury being conjunct the fixed star Spica. Very important degree. He has it. So, but looking at that, I think his judgments are clouded extremely. And I'll show you why. But the most important thing I want you to understand from this is how the Mars Saturn are coming together. So when does Mars and Saturn hit this? Now, Mars is actually, well, let's look at it. Mars, if it's going to be 28 degrees on April 4th, then this means it'll be 26 degrees around the end of March. Okay, so the end of March, Mars will be on Rahu, and Saturn over here. The reason why I'm telling you that is because I didn't bring up the faster moving planets within here. I can actually look it up in my ephemeris right here, but let's see. On Mars, I know Mars moves about a degree every 2 days. So every 2 days, it will move a degree. And so if it's going to be 28, so let's just take it back about 4 days. Like I said, the end of March, Mars will be on Rahu. But when will Saturn be on Rahu? Right here. Saturn will transit over Rahu March 20th. So where are we right now? It's March 5th. So look at all the contention building to this. We are not, of course, you can see this, not out of the woods at all right now. Okay. So another thing is what I'm seeing. Look over here. March 27th, Uranus is up here and it is opposing his Venus. And Venus is, what does Uranus mean? Sudden, unexpected events. And it's aspecting his natal Venus, which rules what? In this chart, the 8th house. What is the 8th house? The 8th house is endings, transformation. You know, it is known to be the house of death, but I'm not going to predict death for anyone because it could just mean this is a really hard time for him. And yes, it could be. It could be what the 8th house, it's endings. It's the death of something, whether it's him or something he's doing. But that's what March 27th. Uranus is going to oppose Venus. And Venus sits in the 1st house. So the fact that Uranus is in his 7th house, what's the 7th house? It's opponents. And therefore his opponents can strike unexpectedly and hitting Venus, which is ruler of the 1st house is you, your physical body. So it can strike him, and Venus also rules the 8th house of endings. So around this time, March 20th through March 27th and onward into April is critical for him, okay? Then looking at July 13th, we have where Rahu is going to be on his Jupiter. That's a tough one, because if you'll look down here where I was going with this big change of dashas, well, he's in Saturn Jupiter till when? It's going to be till November. But many times when the dasha lords are aspected by transiting planets, something big happens. And so what do I foresee with that? Rahu coming over Jupiter, and he is in Saturn Jupiter. Jupiter is the Antara Dasha, or call it Bhukti. I call it the Bhukti. It's the 2nd level down. The 2nd level down refers to what you're experiencing in the immediate environment. The grand cycle is the big picture, such as the country you live in. But this is huge. And another thing, he is in Saturn Jupiter right now. If you will count from Saturn to Jupiter, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You're going to see what is the 8th house all about. That's what the Bhukti is telling us. The subcycle Jupiter, it is 8th from the grand cycle Saturn. That's how you can determine what these cycles are doing. And this Jupiter is an ending. This Jupiter is a huge ending for him. It goes to the 7th house, which is actually also in Vedic astrology considered a Marka house. What's a Marka house? It's called the killer houses. And when you're in a dasha of a planet in a marika, you could be in danger. But don't forget, we will all go through cycles of marika houses and we don't die. So don't get that in your head. But when people do pass, or when they have a really tough time in their life, it's usually because a planet is a marika. Planets in houses 2 and 7, the second house and the 7th house are marika houses. So Jupiter sits in the 7th. Also, it's the planets that rule those houses, such as in his case, it is Mars. It's totally Mars, because Mars rules the 2nd and the 7th. Okay, so continuing on, you can see where this is taking us. And even when we get to, if this is all, whatever's going on is still going on in August and September, the end of July and the 1st of August is another critical time in the world. Extraordinary. We're going to have Uranus. Let me just show, well, I'll show you that in just a second. They're going to all collide together, Uranus, Mars, and Rahu, at 24 degrees of Aries. And here is his Jupiter. So at 26. So he is going to be, if he survives this period, he's going to be under unbelievable pressure at that point in time, because Jupiter's the marika and it sits in the 7th house of opponents. So he has some really serious things going on. And even if I talk about, now this is a little advanced, but for most of you, but this Rahu being in the nakshatra called Dhanishta, the nakshatras are ruled by planets. Dhanishta is ruled by Mars. And if you look where his Mars is, it's in the nakshatra Mula. And Mars is war and violence. But the most important thing to recognize is Mars goes to the 8th house from the moon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you can see that I am seeing that Vladimir Putin is really in danger. And, you know, he's made a lot of choices that has murdered so many people. These are war crimes. And he's going to be held accountable, whether he's imprisoned or they take him out. He's got, he wasn't thinking wisely, because let me show one more major thing that's about to happen. When Jupiter comes up here to 29 degrees, Jupiter and Neptune will conjoin right over here. Let's look. When in April, Jupiter will enter Pisces April 13th, and Neptune will enter Pisces April 17th. Right before they enter Pisces, they're in 29 degrees together in Aquarius. If you look at where that's situated, it creates what we call a yod. What is a yod? Well, it's called the finger of God, and it represents a certain destiny. But he's looking at this yod that's going to be formed. Let me show you, 29 degrees. A yod is where you have a 6-8 relationship. In Vedic astrology, we call it a 6-8 relationship. And that's when planets are either 6 or both 6 and 8 placements away from each other. What is the 6th house? If you think about the 6th house meaning, it's accidents, it's enemies, it's struggles. And what is the 8th placement? Well, you probably already know. It deals with endings and death. So 6-8 relationships are some of the most difficult, and they are called the quincunx in Western astrology, but we call it the Shastaka in Vedic astrology, which equates to saying 6-8 or 8-6. So put Neptune and Jupiter right here and count to where his Mercury and his Pluto are, which are exactly at 29 degrees. And you will find 1, let's see, counting here. All right, 29. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It hits Pluto at 6. 7, 8 hits Mercury at its 8th placement. So you see, this creates a perfect yod with these 29-degree markings, and Jupiter and Neptune. Let me show you this. Jupiter and Neptune. They will be right here at 29 degrees of Aquarius, and they will create a perfect yod, which means a destiny situation. And it affects Vladimir Putin's chart exactly around this time of April 12th. So around this time, around April 12th, what is going to happen? When these two planets come together, that is the most amazing thing ever. It deals with, well, in 29 degrees, I tell everyone that's the fixed star Merkab, which deals with destiny, deals with fate, but it's a star of sorrow. There's something huge about to come upon our planet with what's going on right now. This is why I'm compelled to talk to you guys about this. But I do want to remind everyone that's listening, I'm starting a new series of classes called the Shooting Star series. And I have been compelled to do this, tried to resist it, but it is going to be a class where it focuses on the beginning of this, the beginning of the end, and the beginning of a new beginning. Notice it's 29 degrees, the end of the sign, and going into the beginning of Pisces together, Neptune and Jupiter, radical spirituality. And what came to me is I need to bring people together, and people that are serious on being together, and that they want to be in this group. And this group is only to shed the light on everything. So we are going to be talking about the light, because this has been a real balancing and struggle for everyone with light and dark, truth, not truth, what's real, what's not real, freedom. Jupiter represents freedom. Did you know that? So this whole coronavirus, everything happens for a reason. And this reason is, little by little, everyone's showing their true colors now. All the world leaders and what they've been up to, the corruption, it's all over the world. The media, all the corruption, now we can see it all. And I've been talking about that for so long, people are sick of me talking about it. But what I saw coming for so very long is that little by little, the truth is coming out. And thank goodness for cell phones and really social media, because this is how it's all getting exposed. You know, people have cameras, everything's getting exposed. Back in the 60s, nobody knew what was going on in the governments. The media wasn't allowed to talk about it. And the media, both sides of the media, you got to be careful what really is the truth. I always say, listen to your gut, but everything is coming out. Just look at what we see now from what's happened with the coronavirus, what it's all about. The uncovering of the truth all around the world. But what's happening with this conjunction, it's the ending of something and the beginning of something beautiful. So I thought I might have that series. So I hope you'll join. It's called Shooting Stars, and it starts March 29th. I'm going to have a very well-known speaker at the end of each month that will bring light to us. And let me say one more thing. When I say bringing the light, shedding the light on everything, we're not going to talk about the conspiracy theories or any of that darkness. We're going to talk about the truth and the light and how we can improve and better ourselves. That's what we're here to do. But let me say this. Did you know that Vedic astrology in India is called Jyotish? And the definition of Jyotish is the light. It is the light. And that's what I'm here to do, to bring and shed the light by the beauty of what the stars are here to tell us and how they're here to guide us. They're the most divine thing we have to give guidance. So as Jyotish is called, the science of light. And that's what we're doing today. We're shedding light on the truth so that we can live our lives in a better place. And no, you don't have to be afraid, because you will be well protected when you come from the light. Remember, the light always extinguishes the dark. So something good is coming with this aspect, something amazing. We have a choice though. Neptune can be great deception, and Neptune can be, I mean, a lot of things we can't see. It can be disease, it can be clouds, confusion, lies, deceit, scandals, secrets. But what's the positive of Neptune? The etheric, the beautiful, the spiritual. It is the higher octave of Venus, which is love. We can choose. Do you choose unconditional love of the light, or do you choose the scandals, deception, cheating, and lies? So here is where we come to a crossroads and a point to choose. And this is where we're all headed. We can make a choice. We need to help each other stay in the light. So regardless, if you join us, you can do this with yourself, your family, and only speak of the good, the spiritual, and the light. And that will have such a beautiful repercussion in the world. So looking at that, that's what I wanted you to see, and how it creates the Yod, the finger of God, with Vladimir Putin's chart. Something huge is coming. It's coming, I believe, the end of March and April with this. But there's more to come, because let me point out another feature of what's coming. August 1st, this conjunction is radical. Mars, Rahu, Uranus. I mean, this is great technological advances in the world, actually, because Uranus represents technology and so does Rahu. Mars is machinery as well. So you're going to see things radically shift and change. But on the flip side, Uranus rules earthquakes. So the earth is going to be shaking. There's going to be radical shifts and changes. And yes, I do think that California could have a major earthquake. No, it's not falling off the, don't go to all these extremes. No, it's just, it's probably going to be like the one that they had in the late 80s, 90s. It's just it's going to shake. There's going to be a lot of damage. Okay. And I do get the Middle East could have another, around Turkey and all those places that are prone to earthquakes. It's going to shake the world. We may even, around the time of the eclipses, we get earthquakes too. So watch. Another thing I wanted to say, that Jupiter, Neptune, be aware, you know, this is in April. And we are going to have major floods when Jupiter and Neptune go into Pisces. Remember, Neptune is the god of the seas or the oceans. And when it comes to Jupiter, it's magnified in the sign of Taurus. I mean, in the sign of Pisces, Pisces is water, major floods. And with Uranus coming together with Rahu and Mars as the trigger, by late July, early August, we're going to have a lot of shaking going on. So let me go to the chart for Russia that I have here. So looking at Russia, you know, there is a lot going on with Russia. So just focus over here. This is where that Mars Saturn is. It's going to affect, and Mars is right today, it's almost 5 degrees. The moon is 9 degrees. Russia's under pressure. And when it hits Rahu, that will be another time that Russia has to look out. Big time things happening. And even look at that Venus and Pluto around the end of July and early August, when Mars, Uranus, they're going to be affecting Venus and Pluto in this chart. So Russia's under incredible stress and pressure and endings and things happening in Russia, yes. And if you look, Pluto is the 4th house, the homeland. So remember, the houses are numbered out here. Okay, Ukraine. Look where the moon is. That doesn't get more direct. That Mars-Saturn conjunction, 28 degrees of Capricorn, sits right on that moon. And the moon is the most sensitive point in a chart. And the moon rules the 7th house of opponents. So this is them being attacked. And it's going to get more intense, unfortunately, because that Mars-Saturn are getting closer to that. But it's already starting. You see, even when a planet enters a sign, it starts. Because technically in Vedic astrology, a conjunction is the whole sign. But the closer it gets to degree, the more intense it becomes. So you're going to see some major, poor Ukraine. I hate that I had to see that. Well, I don't like to use the word hate, but I don't like that. Let me put it this way. That word's almost appropriate here. So let's look at Zelensky's chart. And again, I don't know if the time's correct, but this is his birthday. And looking at his chart, look where his moon sits. The Saturn, Mars are about to oppose his moon, the most sensitive point in a chart. And actually right now, transiting Mars, being about 5 degrees, is about to oppose his natal Mars. The poor guy is fearing for his life right now. And the world is really not doing enough, if I could say. It's really a sad predicament that he's in. I don't know what to say, but the Saturn, if you look at Saturn was 24 degrees Capricorn when this war started, when they started attacking him. And it was exactly opposed his natal moon in Cancer. And now we have Mars coming up to oppose the moon, which means there'll be more attacks. And hopefully it isn't an attack on him personally. Hopefully it's not him, but he's under pressure and he's in danger till we get Mars and Saturn out of Capricorn. But they're there till April, till April, yes. Okay. All right, so one more chart I wanted to look at. Now, I know there's a lot of people from around the world. We'll maybe do some more of these live streams, but let's look at the United States chart to see if there's any involvement here. As I said before, I don't think that the United States is going to get totally involved. They don't. They're helping and, sanctions, but to physically go over there and get involved in a complete war, I don't see that exactly because, well, here's the thing, the Mars-Saturn are about to come up and hit K2 in the 2nd house of finances and money. So guess what? You're going to see a big downward cycle, more so than what we're seeing now. One more thing I forgot to mention, that Jupiter-Neptune, because Neptune rules oil and Jupiter magnifies things. And by the time Mars rolls over to conjoin where Jupiter and Neptune are, within the next month or 2 months, And I said this so many times before, way before the beginning of this year, you are going to see the price of oil go out the roof. Why? Because this Jupiter Neptune. It's very easy to predict, but I said oil prices are going to go sky high. I said this a year ago. Those of you that have been watching know. But look at this. I mean, Mars is about to hit Pluto here, and it's about to hit K2 here. So over the course of the next few weeks, the economy is going to plummet more. And by the time that Mars Saturn hits, it's going to be low. But I do think the light is coming with the Jupiter Neptune. I think all of a sudden, after all of the calamity that's going on, there's going to be light at the end of this tunnel. And when do I see that light the most? The end of April and May. Jupiter and Venus will travel together in Pisces, and that represents a healing. Venus is exalted in Pisces. Jupiter's in its own sign in Pisces. I know these two benefics don't particularly like each other, but they're still benefics in the same sign of Pisces, and healing, compassion, and love. It is coming. So one more thing. President Biden, does he have any planets that are being affected in this incredible tie-up? And yes, he does. Remember, Rahu and Ketu are about to go to 29, 28 degrees of Aries and Libra. That's where Mercury sits. And Mercury sits in the 12th house, once again, of foreign lands and countries. So Jupiter, when it comes up here to 28 degrees with Neptune, 28, 29 degrees, will be casting a perfect trine, activating that Mercury in the 12th house, helping other countries. But at the same time, we have Saturn and Mars squaring it with K2 on Mercury. K2 will be on his Mercury. And it's in the 12th house. 12th house can be endings and losses. It's foreign countries as well. But his Mercury rules the 8th, the ruler of the 8th and the 12th. It also rules the 11th of groups and friends. With K2 on his Mercury, I don't think his friends are his friends. And that goes for foreign lands and countries. K2 is considered losses, depletion of energy. He has been depleted of his energy after K2 crossed over his Venus and Sun. But now they're about to enter into the 12th house of endings. And notice where his dashas are. He is at the tail end of a dasha as well, which represents some type of huge ending. And what's fascinating is he changes dashas in September of 2022, just like Vladimir Putin. That's telling you something big is about to come to an end then for both of these world leaders. Okay. Going one more over, let's go to the Ukraine. Or no, he doesn't have a change of dashas. I thought he did. So one more thing, I thought I might just throw in really quick China, because I think they don't have anything but Venus here, and Venus is in the 10th house. So K2 is going to start aspecting Venus in the 10th house. They're going to come under pressure. But the worst thing for China is that if you'll notice, in around October, Mars is going to go retrograde at around 1 to 0 degrees of Gemini. Let me point this out, and then I will take questions. Mars is going to go retrograde on the United States Mars. And if we look at the leader of China, it will be on the sun of China in the 12th house of foreign lands and countries. So China's kind of out of the picture right now, but they're going to join forces by this time. that we have the Mars, Rahu, let me go here, Mars, Rahu, and Uranus coming together in Aries. And a lot is about to happen this year for 2022. This is what I'm seeing astrologically. But do I know the exact result? It's still up for free will to take place. Nothing's ever etched in stone. But as the planets in Vedic astrology are called the grahas, graha means to grasp and take hold. This is the tendency of where the emotions of the people will take root. This is going to be where people move and gravitate to what the planets are leading us to do. But we have free will. We can take back our power. Individually, we have to do this. In such critical times, all of the world is fighting for their freedom, and all of the world is starting to see the reality of things. So this is so important that we as light seekers band together, help the world, connect to our inner knowingness, our spirit that is connecting us to everyone and everything around the world. We are all part of that divine spirit. And when we recognize it and we connect to it, our light will begin to extinguish the darkness in the world. And that doesn't mean getting all involved in conspiracy theories or hate or polarization or separation from others. We're meant to band together. And I think it's pretty cool that NATO pretty much is banding together. And some countries are showing their true colors by what they're doing in respect to helping the innocent people in the Ukraine that are being, their houses, their lives are being destroyed, millions. It is a really sad predicament that one individual, a tyrant and a dictator, feels like in his quest for power wants to ruin others' lives. It's astounding. But what is it? Let me tell you one of my sayings about control and power, and it really pretty much relates to my understanding of the planet Pluto. But when you feel the need to be in control, what happens always is you become more out of control. And what happens when you come more and more out of control is you destroy yourself. And that's what has happened traditionally, historically, from all of the tyrants and war mongrels, Hitler and Stalin. When they need to control everything, they end up destroying themselves. So realize that we have to surrender, and not surrender to, don't get me wrong, when I say surrender, what I'm actually saying is listening more to the divine to guide us, because there is a divine force in all of us. And when we listen, our life changes for the better. And I want that for everyone. So with that, let me go ahead. I'm bringing over my other computer so I can see some of your questions. And I'm going to be answering some of them. So jump on board. Boy, this thing's really popping around here. Let me see. Oh, yeah. This is good. Everyone's talking about the power and, you know, what it's all about. So seeking the truth. And okay. Does anyone have any questions? And I will be, let me answer any questions before we close. Let's see. Everyone's making beautiful, wonderful, right-on comments that are so true. And some of the things don't apply to today's talk. So I'm going to try to answer the ones that pertain more to today's talk. So, yeah, I'm not going to, And the person that asks about Tesla stock, you obviously do not subscribe to my magazine, because I gave a complete analysis of Tesla stock in astrologicmagazine.com. So let me see. Okay. A lot of people are asking me about different countries' involvement. And really, the only one I pulled up was the United States and Russia and Ukraine. So I'll do more work with trying to uncover that. What awaits Russia? They're going to be, I think they're going to be invaded. They're going to have to pay for the consequences of what their leader has done. And it's not good. Okay. So, okay, somebody asked me to look deeper into Zelensky's chart. You know, I think Zelensky, if he can get past this month of March, I think he'll be okay. But he's in trouble, and I can tell he's seriously concerned. I think he needs more help. Yeah. Let me see. And somebody asked about India. I heard that India, they're showing their true colors because they're not supported. They're not supporting. They're still going to be buying oil from Russia. Yeah, they need it, but they, other countries are banning the Russian imports of fuel. Isn't it funny how oil is always the root at all of these problems many times? The wars in the Middle East, the wars here, throughout history, oil has been a major issue. And with Jupiter, Neptune coming together, it's major blow up issues with oil. Yes. Okay, let's see here. Okay, somebody asked me, all of you guys are asking me questions that I already went over with in this analysis. Maybe you all came on late, but as I noted, Joe Biden's at the end of a cycle, and so is Vladimir Putin. By September, the cycle ends, and they start a new cycle. So something in their life, in their positions of leadership, ends. And as I was looking at, K2 is going to cross over Biden's Mercury right here. And that's in the 12th house. And that's a really difficult position. I'm just going to say he can definitely leave his position and everything that's going on in his life. It represents endings, whatever that means. It can mean, ending of his position, his leadership, or it can actually mean his health. And, the 12th house does deal with hospitals and health and problems with the physical. Mercury rules the 8th house. I think I explained what that could mean. So yikes for Biden's health. And, but we will see. I know so many of you are from Canada. I probably need to do this all about Canada, and what's going on with Justin Trudeau, but that's not for today's talk. I can only do so much in an hour, and I just look up at the clock and it's 1:08. How do you like that? So we've been going for over an hour, and I'll take one more question. Yeah, the stock market is going to plummet, but don't forget, it's going to come back. You see, people don't really know where to put their money. And a lot of people are making so much money on the stock market. Every time it goes down, people jump in and buy because it's at a low price. And then they raise it up and then they sell. So people are going in and out and in and out. And this is where the wealth is coming from the stock market. This is why it just keeps this radical highs and lows, and it's so volatile. So I don't think it's going to stay down once it goes down. And I think that Jupiter Neptune is going to bring great blessings in many respects, but after great sorrow and destruction. That's what I know. So, that's a good one. Somebody said chart for NATO. I don't have a chart for NATO, but I'm going to look for one. I'll search and I'll find one. So, the most human trafficking country is the Ukraine. I didn't know that. I'll have to research that too. So yeah, we don't want any more of that. That's for sure. But could I say this? We're focused so much on this. Meanwhile, there is a lot going on in Asia. And I think Asia's going to pick up their guns and be more volatile, definitely, by August and September. So it's time that the truth comes out. It's time that the light comes out. That's what this is all about. So, yes. And let me just say, my 2022 predictions that I did back in, actually I put them together in November. You can say that everything is happening right on target. And one of the big, so there's three big things that happen this year. I'm going to say the Mars-Saturn conjunction, which is happening. It's coming. They're coming together right now. So we're feeling the effects of it right now. They're dead on by April 4th. The next one will be the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. Major overturn from deep darkness to the light. That happens the middle and the end of April. And if you guys want to travel, go around May when those beautiful alignments are happening. And one more thing about all of that, remember, we are so focused on the destruction of this world right now. The coronavirus has become something that nobody is that focused in on anymore. As I said in March, the coronavirus will be behind us. And I've been saying this for over a year, that it's behind us, and we are ready just to move on. Focus on other things, which we have far more important things to focus in on now. And lastly, the third major event happens the end of July. It was actually August. Here we go. No, not that one. That one, August 1st. This is the conjunction. So those are the three turning points and events. And besides that, we also have the Mars going retrograde. Yes, Kamala Harris is really going to have a major big thing to deal with, big thing to deal with after August. It will be around October. And when Mars turns retrograde, it will retrograde on her ascendant and her Rahu. And that means she is going to have a huge turning point in her life. And actually, people who have Rahu on the ascendant have a life of destiny. This was all chosen for her, whether she wanted it or not. This is her destiny. Think about the power of Mars turning retrograde on her Rahu and her ascendant. In October, when Mars goes retrograde. And don't forget, that's the Mars of the United States chart and Mars of the China chart. So with that, I think that's enough to deal with. Let's not worry about it. Let's focus in on the Jupiter Neptune. It changes the world where the truth is revealed and we can come from the light. So, and I love to use the term that I'm going to help everyone, show everyone, give them guidance through the science of light, which is called Jyotish. So with that, I think I'll close. I noticed a lot of what the questions are about are basically about what I'm talking about, what I've already talked about. So this is all recorded, and I will be in touch with everyone through live webinars. And I'm going to have my shooting star class, which look into that on my website, galacticcenter.org. I have my shooting star series. Check it out, see what it's all about, see if you want to be part of this. We are going to focus on the light and help each other. This is what the world needs right now. And don't forget, if you want, if this sparked your interest in learning Vedic astrology, I came up with a crash course. You won't want to miss it if you want to learn how to do this for yourself. It's a beginning class for beginners. It is a complete crash course on March 26th. It's a Saturday. And on that Saturday from 9:30 to 4:30 all day, I'm going to teach you how to read a chart, how to make your own predictions. I promise you, you'll be able to do it from this. And if you don't completely absorb it all in one day, don't worry. The whole class is recorded and it's yours to keep. I have 200 slides in this class. I will teach you how to predict marriage, how to predict money, how to predict children in a chart, everything that you want to know. Check that out. March 26th is my beginning crash course in Vedic astrology, and my Shooting Stars series, which starts March 29th, is on Tuesdays. And it will be every Tuesday monthly. And look into joining that, because that's where we're going to band together to really, really find ourselves and help the world through discovering where and what we really are, which is what? We're the essence of the divine. And that's the light. That's where we're going to go. That's the only place to go. When there's calamity in the world, the only place to go is not without, but within. And that will bring you peace and happiness and joy. And that's a promise. So one more thing, if you want to get notifications about all of my predictions and everything that's going on, go to my website, galacticcenter.org. Sign up for my free newsletter. It's free. Give you all of my predictions written out. And weekly, they're coming now. And I will inform you of different events that you might want to partake in as well. So it is a huge, great way that we can stay in contact and connected. So with that, I'd like to close. Thank you everyone so much for coming and joining me for this hour to really get a sense on what the stars are trying to tell us through the charts of the people that we have. And it's going to